Hi, everybody. It's the CC and JT Amateur Hour where productions I go to die. This one is CC,
And this is JT
so
who
to speak.
needs to slow
No,
down a little
slow
bit.
down. I just had
A little
so
bit.
much caffeine.
Too much coffee, too
Coffee.
many
What we
espressos.
do here on the Amateur Hour is we love to help writers write, and part of our mission is to welcome writers from around the world. And when we first started welcoming from writers from around the world, we were thinking, boy, we can get people from England, we can get people from Canada, and one of the first people we got lives right over in our neighborhood here in Carson City. So it just made us laugh. But anyway, we welcome back Kendall Brown, who is the writer, and I'm going to look at the title, the writer of 10 Secrets of a Lazy Dog Trainer and Let's Get a Dog. And these books are just so fascinating, and they're so fabulous, in fact, that they're award-winning and gained Kendall's all sorts of recognition. And so we are so pleased to welcome you back to the big show, Kendall. What did I forget? Introduce yourself and let us know what's on your mind.
Well, I'm Kendall Brown. It's a pleasure to be back here. I think it is funny. Carson City kind of is a town where you know everybody. Let's see here. I run my own company. I am happily married to my coworker. My husband's a Marine Corps officer in the reserves, and I'm always writing, and it seems like I'm always running different projects. So I've got 2 more books coming up here to be released, possibly 3, depends if my boss gives me enough time off to sit down and write them.
Yeah, that's always the challenge.
It really is.
So the reason you reached out to us, which we're great, which is great because we love returnees because we kind of gotten over that hump of nervousness when you first meet somebody, especially in a professional setting like this. So we kind of know how we know each other role, and we actually shared a book signing event over at the Reno Town Mall. Not Reno Town Mall.
The Reno Public Market?
Reno Public Market, which us old folks used to call Shopper Square. And that was all kind of fun, so we got a chance to visit then. But as I said, you reached out to us, and I thought you had some wonderful ideas that we could talk about, especially when it comes to the subject of helping writers write. So take the lead.
Well, it's been kind of weighing on my mind lately, but I've noticed that as I've begun, my journey, I guess, as a published author and running my business at the same time, life has just gotten crazier and crazier. And it's been, very interesting navigating the creative drain and the decision fatigue. And then also when you write my books at least are usually about dogs. And because I spend every day talking about dogs, sometimes it's different, I think, than going home and writing fantasy or writing, science fiction. I then have to go home and write about dogs. So that has been very interesting kind of quandary that I've been going over. How do you maintain your creative flow? How do you maintain a sense of play? And then you also have all the technology that comes in and how, with certain AIs and how technology always follows you, the pros and cons we have with this. It's with you all the time, but at the same time, you're never given a break from it. So that's just what's been on my mind at 2 a.m.
That's actually, that ties in with something that we discussed previously, just JT and I, where you don't get a break from your mind when you're a writer because basically it's 24/7, 365. So it's really an important topic. And as you said, if you're working for yourself with your day job, but you still have 2 jobs because you have your writing hat and you have your dog training hat. So do you find that it's hard to make that switch from the training part of your day to the writing part of your day?
Well, because my books combine 1 part technique and how-to and 1 part memoir, I find the how-to part is pretty easy to write. I'm essentially lecturing and discussing topics in my own voice on page. It's the memoir sections that can get challenging to bring up the creativity and sometimes even just to think like, oh, I grew up on a boat, so I might use terminology that people might not be aware of, or, I have a very dry, dirty, dark sense of humor. So figuring out who my audience is. So that has been watching the fatigue or being aware of, when am I getting burnt out, writing when I feel the itch, and then giving myself permission to take, 20 minutes off before I jump into writing, just to even just take a jog around the block or to talk with folks like you, people who share my passions, can really whet my interest again.
And that's actually an excellent point because that's the thing about burnout or fatigue or whatever phrase we want to use. Sneaky. It
Yeah.
doesn't carry a sign that says, hey, you're in trouble. So for yourself, what have you seen for yourself are the signs of that fatigue or burnout when it comes, comes to that part of your life?
Okay, so I will usually sit in my office and I will put my hands on the keyboard and I will stare at the keyboard and I will go, anytime, Kendall, let's go. Whenever you're ready, muses. And I will find that I dislike my work. And so for me, like, it's really important when I'm writing to, like, when I enter the flow and I really can feel the connection I'm going to have with my reader. And when I start to get burnt out, I just dread sitting down because I dread the effort it takes to cough the words up onto the page. So I found that when that starts to hit, I can't fight it. I can't sit through it. I have to, like, relax. You can't squeeze water from stones, I think is the phrase. And so I found that for me personally, knuckling down and trying to, like, force it out hasn't been very effective. But I think that's kind of in our culture is, if it's not hard, it's not worth doing. And, you just grit your teeth and do it. But for me, that hasn't been that successful.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to CC and say what's same question. What happened? What is your sign of fatigue or burnout?
Actually, mine is very similar to yours, Kendall. And I think JT knows this, which is why he may have asked me the same question, because I will sit down and not be able to focus on what I'm trying to write because my mind just kind of wanders everywhere. And it's not the fact that I don't have the creative ideas that I need. It's maybe I have too many of them and I can't corral them into something that's even a little bit coherent on the keyboard. But you mentioned also that you're writing multiple projects at this time. So does that increase your worry about having a lot of fatigue and burnout?
Well, I find that when I have a lot of different projects, I can focus on whatever one kind of strikes my fancy. And then within each project, I've also tried to divide out, like, do I want to work on my cover design if I'm feeling more visual that day? Or do I want to go and write, actually, I write my acknowledgments. That spurs me pretty good. Or I write like my anything extra for the book. So that kind of helps me get in the mindset of, I don't have to just write chapter 1. I can switch around and dabble a little bit. So I think it takes the pressure off me. Or I might try and write in a different way. I'm very visual, and so I've been using the immersive environments in VR to write recently because it's kind of helped me get out of my office and my work mode and just play. I don't know if that's been helpful for you, but I'm really curious too because you guys are so prolific in your writing and proficient. You do a lot of writing. I can't speak English today, apparently. It's okay. I don't make my living from my voice or my words.
Right.
No. No, but the advantage we have or disadvantages we have is and this may actually be a disadvantage, is we're retired. So this is our job. So we can't escape from it. We're stuck there. So if you were to accidentally show up at coffee some morning, you might actually see me over there, pounding away at the keyboard. Or if you were at our house, CC would be upstairs and I would be downstairs, so we can't really escape from it. But let's talk about that word escape. I think that's key here. It's hard to escape from us. It's hard to escape from the writing. Do you have an escape hatch?
My husband. I mean, I feel like because you guys are in a very similar position, like, I think finding your brain buddy, finding your person who you can either, do something with your hands, like cook together, or even sometimes the escape is just chit-chatting about how tired I am of writing. Just to be able to share space with somebody or have somebody who can hold the space for you to be like, ugh, well, I'm feeling so drained, or I'm not feeling like it's working, or I'm nervous. I think sometimes we think of creativity as being a finite resource, and we forget that it fills back up with a little bit of rest. It's never gone. It's not something that accidentally, like a bird didn't accidentally poop on us and then leave us, right? It's always there. So for me, that's been a really good resource to use my husband. Otherwise, I would say nature. Being able to go move my body and give my brain permission to turn off. Although I am not above a couple episodes of Say Yes to the Dress. The more nauseatingly simple the TV show, the better apparently it is for my brain.
No, I get that because I've been binge watching some shows that from the past, just kind of comfort shows, and it does give me the chance to, I may not stop thinking about writing, but it kind of pushes it to the back of my mind and allows the
but
freedom.
let's get this out there. So you're working on something that was placed in the late 1800s.
Right.
So what show did you just binge?
Dr. Quinn.
Nice. I love it. I love it. And I think like, but isn't that interesting? Like we spend our lives doing words, the written word, and especially if you're teaching, right? You are actively trying to present knowledge and fill somebody else's mind. And I find at least it's very helpful to see something visual, not to read. Like in my spare time, I have books, floor to ceiling bookshelves, and I love books. But sometimes when I'm tired of writing, I don't switch to reading. I find that it's helpful to see something visually and almost like let that part of my brain rest. So I don't know if that's the case for y'all, but that's
No,
that's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
helpful for me.
yeah, but in there is a little bit of a challenge too. Like my grandfather was also prolific. He was an English professor up at UNR. So, but the technology of his time was a typewriter,
Right.
and that's it. When he first started out, didn't even have a copy machine, just typewriter. So, but the technology of the tools that we have in our toolbox is just practically infinite now. And you
Mm.
mentioned some of that. So, what are the tools that you use to store your ideas or basically maybe keep inspiration until you get back to your main workstation?
Well, I use a Plaud, Plaud, and it's a little device that I attach to the back of my phone, and it records and transcribes what I'm saying. And a lot of times I'll record clients because I'm teaching them, and I will sometimes say gems that I'm like, that's a way to say it I'd never thought. But it's hard sometimes to remember exactly what it is. It's gotten to the point now that if I don't have it, I'll actually stop the client and I'll be like, whoa, hang on, let me write that down. So that's been helpful. And it automatically transcribes everything that I have said. So I don't have to sit there and then type it back in. It organizes it and puts it on the cloud. And then this is going to sound horrible, I use my Oculus a lot. So I will use this and a wireless keyboard that just like opens up like that. And I will then you might see me in Comma Coffee, because I love Comma Coffee. The energy in that place is so cool. And I will actually be in here, and I have my remote workshop set up, my desktop. So my computer screen, like I'm sharing my computer screen with at home, it's the size, it's 8 feet by 10 feet. So it's very immersive. So I'll be typing and I can see everything going on, but I've got my big screen up in front of me. And for me, I'm very visual, so that's very helpful to have something that is, I can see the story starting to develop.
So I'm
I know,
actually,
these are pretty cool.
he loves tech.
We can
So
start a club.
as you're describing this, I'm actually envisioning, if you've ever seen the movie Minority Report, they had something along those lines where it was kind of just projected before them, but I don't
Yes.
remember them actually having a headset. It was just kind of a
Well,
almost
in the future,
graphic,
we don't want to have to deal with like heavy things on our face.
right?
I'm sure eventually it's just going to become like the Google glasses that are now out. But what I like about it is sometimes bringing my laptop, there's lots of other distractions. My laptop is connected to the internet, Facebook, and then I get sidetracked, or I can have messages on my phone. And so I found that using my Oculus or even just a whiteboard when I'm in the field and I don't have my gear, is really helpful because there's not any distractions.
No, that's fascinating. I'd actually never thought of AI as a tool for writing, but that's a great way to do it because I'm still pretty old school when it comes to that. I use Post-it notes. I used to come home,
Oh,
I was still working outside the house. I'd come home with my purse would be full of Post-it notes that were not organized with all the ideas that I had throughout the day. So,
I love that. I think like that comes down to, right, there's no one way to write.
mhm.
I know this is going to probably be a very common knowledge nowadays, right? We all kind of understand we're unique, but your way of learning and your way of writing will evolve over time. And so it's all about finding the tools that don't cause friction, but that cause you to like be like, oh, I can totally like now I can be sitting like in my Oculus, I can sit in a mountain and on a mountain stream and write, or I can switch it to being in a cabin and write, or I can see pass through. So it allows me to change my environment to kind of suit where my brain wants to go. But I also am a fan of the whiteboard. I have you would laugh, half of my office wall is covered in whiteboard. And that's how I think. I brainstorm out loud. And I also use Chat GPT as voice mode to bounce ideas off of. I like him because he's infinitely patient. And sometimes my poor husband spends a lot of time listening to my ideas. And so I'll use chat to bounce ideas off or be like, what do you think about this? Or where would this flow me? Or ask me 5 questions that came up from you if you were a beta reader. So it helps my brain think.
Okay, so I don't mean to ambush you.
Huh?
But you were right. That's fine.
Yeah, ambush.
But I'm going to do it a little bit anyway because AI is definitely a controversial subject in the writing sphere. You know, there are books that are just written by AI, and there are books that are being scraped by AI. You know, it's right now it's the big devil in our business right now.
Mhm.
So, what would you say to people who may or may not? Well, let me just be again. Let me be the devil here. Get in your face and say, "How dare you do this? How dare you use AI for your creative work?"
Mhm.
What's your feedback to that? And then I'll tell you what mine is.
Oh, okay, cool. I love to share. For myself, I use it creatively to bounce ideas off of, just like I would use any other tool, like just like I would use my Oculus or a keyboard or a typewriter. It's just a tool that I use to be able to take ideas and explore them, put them down. For me, the personal line that I draw is I do not use it to write. I'll use him to pass over my ideas or maybe to help me flesh out an outline. But I find, even though I could give him my book and have him read it and then spit it back out at me, I find that my personal joy of the craft of writing comes from it being from the heart and soul of a human.
Yep, and I'm totally in line with that. But I'm gonna add a little dimension to this, and it's gonna involve a little humble brag. I guess. Of my 5 degrees, I have two of them in IT. One of them being a master's degree. So I've seen a lot of evolution and de-evolution when it comes to IT, especially in the writing business. And whether our
Mm-hmm.
colleagues agree or not, 10 years from now, this is going to be a null issue. I feel
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel based on my education and training that this is a null issue. Should
Mm-hmm.
we go into it kicking and screaming? Oh, absolutely, because that's how we
Mm-hmm.
work out the moral issues, the ethical issues, and everything in between. Those are complex issues that need to be put on the table. Putting up
Mm-hmm.
stone walls is not solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I also agree with what you're saying. There needs to be a line between, that hey, this the creative out. They're two
Mm-hmm.
different things, and so
Hmm.
I totally agree with what you're saying there.
Well, I think the problem too is sometimes when people take AI as gospel, they think he can do no wrong, or they think that like it's never going to have the wrong information. But I can tell you, my husband and I have played around with it a bit, and he'll spit out information that is blatantly wrong. You know, he's what he is, he's only as good as the prompts that you can put into him. And so I think a lot of what we're going to be learning how to do is not only teaching AI how to think strategically like a human, how to play devil's advocate, how to coordinate with us and look at things from all sides. Because ultimately, right, humans, we're gray creatures. We're not black and white. We have deep ideas, twisted logic, but I also think we're going to find a place where we can use AI to supplement and enhance what is the best part of human. If, like our dreams, our goals, hopefully is going to be there to be a magnifying glass and a tool as opposed to a shackle or just to cause people to stop being able to think for themselves.
And
Yeah.
thinking about the fact that you are a dog trainer and you write about dogs and human interaction with dogs, how does your use of something like ChatGPT, if you're asking it for information about dog training or something, are you finding that a lot of what it spits back at you is incorrect?
It's either incorrect or it is so generic because all he did was scan the first 3,000 articles he came across that it's borderline useless. I find that just like everything, right? People and dogs are unique. The relationship you have with your dog is unique. You might have tried 8 other things that Chat is suggesting that you do, and none of them have worked, so why try them again? And I think what chat will never be able to replace, or AI will never be able to replace, is the ability to feather the clutch, so to speak, to be able to apply a hair of pressure, pull back a hair of pressure, customize it, and really work in the moment. We found that people have tried to use chat to look up dog training techniques and things like that, and 9 times out of 10 it's an opposing views. It'll say one thing and then it'll say the complete opposite thing further down, or it's so generic that the reality of it is like we always say in the dog training industry, like if you want, do you want a free training? Go to YouTube. And when that fails, come to me. It's more in depth than just generic advice that you could find. So I'm not worried about chat replacing replacing relationship based skill sets. I think humans are hungry for those these days. I don't know about you guys, but I'm thrilled when I get a human on the phone that I can
Hmm.
someone I can talk to. But I think that the danger that AI is just going to start to bring up is people will take it as, well, the end all be all, and they will just follow it by rote which will be unfair to a living creature or to their own relationship.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct there. Especially people, I don't know, how do I want to say this? People of a certain age, when they see something written down, they
Mhm.
think that it's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is part of the issue that we're having with our country right now and our culture
Yes.
is they see something written down or they see something spoken with authority. Even
Mm-hmm.
though it's wrong, it's easy to be persuaded or allow yourself to be persuaded.
Yes.
But on the flip side of that, I also agree that there are some professions, especially dog training, that requires a hand, that requires human interaction. So what do you see, and you may have answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So what do you see as the future of all these combined technologies and the profession of dog training?
Well, I'll answer your question about dog training first, and I'll jump into technology. For dog training, I see us hopefully being able to use technology more in the home. So right now, we're actually launching a good portion of our business online because we found that although everyone jokes about it, it is true. 99% of dog training is me teaching the human how to speak dog. It doesn't do me any good to just teach your dog and then leave you and you don't know how to interact with your dog or how to build behaviors. So my hope is that technology and dog training will continue to evolve to where, like we're currently creating now for our business, we have weekly videos that we can send to people. We have live sessions that we can film. We have workshops and seminars and boot camps that we can reach out to people. So we have the convenience, the affordability, and the accessibility right there. So I think hopefully technology will continue to enhance the dog trainer's role and the teacher's role into the home. My hope is that along that same thought is that technology will continue to be a boon to humanity. It'll, continue to allow me get smaller and more easily, not so big and clunky, but will get smaller and will allow us to be able to dive into immersive environments, to be able to have more creativity, or be able to have an aid to take some of the busier work off of our life and even just coordinate our schedules. So I'm hoping that's where AI will go and modern technology, not down the other rabbit hole, which is we lose all critical thinking ability and become reliant on a machine essentially that doesn't really care about us.
Right. That is the fear. And I am, I guess, a historian by nature. So I know that a lot of critical thinking skills are really not taught in schools unless somebody follows a particular education path. So it is very troublesome if people are relying too much on technology that way. But
And you
switching gears a little bit, no, that's fine. I was just curious that when we talk to authors, we find that a lot of authors have problems marketing their work. And do you feel that technology could be helpful with your marketing? How do you market your work? Is it specifically to a particular group of people, or are you promoting your work through online platforms or something else maybe I never considered the Oculus, so I don't know if there's a marketing aspect to that either.
Good question. So we are primarily selling our book on Amazon. And so we do Amazon marketing, and AI has been helpful in teaching us how to do that. And we actually run whole advertising campaigns based off of AI suggestions, and then we feed him updated numbers and SEO results and keywords and things like that. And then there's another program we use called Rocket. Why can't I remember?
Publisher Rocket.
Publisher Rocket. That we found to be very helpful for helping our book rank. And then I think, technology is a beast. It's either going to use you or you're going to use it to a certain extent. So we've been studying a lot of relevancy. How do we rank on Amazon? How does Google find our website and our services? What are backlinks? Things like that to be able to speak better to the technology that is essentially searching to put people in contact with our books. So we do that, and then we also run in person because I found that nothing beats word of mouth. I guess I'm traditional, but I like to meet people and talk with them. So we run free talks at the library about writing books, but also about dog training in general. And then we host expos, or we do expos, and we do book signings like we did with you, which was a lot of fun. So we find a combination helps.
Anyway, this has just been such a fascinating discussion, and I feel like we've just almost kind of scratched the surface of this very complex topic. But before we wrap it up, Any last thoughts that you want to throw at us? Did we cover pretty much what you wanted to cover?
I think so. I think, like you said, there's always more to unravel when it comes to AI and technology because it's an ever evolving creature. Next month, we'll have a different conversation about where it's evolved to then. I'd say I would encourage people not to be afraid of technology replacing their work set if they continue to maintain a creative state of mind. The creativity that people have is priceless. It's human. And so not being afraid of that creative drain even when you're juggling a lot of different things, and not being afraid to learn about AI because you want to learn about it so that you can harness it.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. Okay, before we let you go, you already said it, but let's go ahead and repeat it. Where can we find your great books on the internet, your website, so on and so forth? Where can we find Kendall Brown?
All the above. Also in the Carson City Library, and I'm hoping to join the Sierra Arts Foundation.
Yep.
Yes.
I've heard great things about them, largely from the two of you, by the way. Good job.
We
So
did.
anywhere, I try and be pretty active.
Okay. Excellent. If nobody has anything else, we would like to thank Kendall Brown, the author of, let me get it right, 10 Secrets of a Lazy Dog Trainer and Let's Get a Dog. That's been recognized internationally as one of the go-to books on this very complex subject. And sometimes, subtitles, How to Train Your Human to Have a Dog.
That is true.
So thank you again, and thank you for everybody for joining the CC and JT Amateur Hour. This is one of 2 podcasts that we host to help writers write. We are also members of the Sierra Arts Foundation, as Kendall mentioned, and over there we do a podcast called the Nevada Authors Network, which is a partnership between our company, Two More Books LLC, and the Sierra Arts Foundation to highlight the literary artists here in Northern Nevada, and hopefully we'll be able to feature Kendall on there sometime soon. But until then, thank you, Kendall.
Thank you.
My pleasure, loves. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.